I'm going to go with the original teaching of the apostles and what they understood. And I have now come to believe that what he accomplished at the cross was forgiveness and then defeating death and sin and that kind of thing. No, there wasn't balance given because because there's still wrath being poured out. So, or some, at the time, let me say it this way. At the time the Old Testament writers were writing their books, there was still wrath that was looked for in their future. So, so those are the three and only three major ideas in the world today. There's lots of ideas, but those are the three schools of thought in the world today of what happened at the cross. There was the Christ is victor. There was the, what was it called? The balance one, the dishonoring one. I forget what I said it was. And then the penal substitution. And, okay. So Jonathan Welton says in his book, it's best to look back at the Old Testament at the types and shadows of, to find out like what happened at the cross. Was God punishing Jesus for sin, or was he just like, was he using these types and shadows to show us what Jesus did? So Jesus is called our Passover lamb. Jesus is often, that whole picture of the father sacrificing his son is shown in Abraham and Isaac. And he's also the atoning sacrifice. And I believe that it's Hebrews that calls him the Passover lamb and the atoning sacrifice of the law. So the Passover lamb, let's go back to Isaac. So God comes to Abraham in Genesis 5 and tells him, through your seed, I'm going to make this great nation. And then he makes a sacrifice with him. But in Genesis, he says, I'm going to, make you a father of many nations. All the earth will call you blessed. If you can number the stars in the sky or the sands on the sea, that's how many descendants you're going to have. You're going to be a father of many nations. But then he says something interesting. He says, but know this, that your descendants will be taken to a land not their own, and will there serve as slaves for 400 years, and I will release them, and they'll come back to this land and live in this land. But the nation that they leave, they're going to plunder. They're going to take many riches out with them when they leave. And then they'll come and live in this land. So it seems kind of like a weird little addendum to this promise in the middle of, I'm going to bless you, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, but oh, we're going to have this 400 years of weirdness. And then he says, the reason why he's doing that is because the sin of I think it's Ammonites, have not reached their full. And that's where the land that Abraham was living at the time. So God was going to allow this nation to sin for the next 400 years because it wasn't enough for him to deal with. It was going to be, he's going to have it that nation would have sinned enough, whatever enough was, or reaching its full as I don't know, within 400 years. So those animals are sacrificed, and then Abraham has a meal with God. And then, so these covenants are tied to a meal. Noah sacrificed, I'm not sure about the actual meal, like whether or not Noah did, and it doesn't really say, but covenants were also often ratified with a meal. And then when Moses made the law, the first law, the 10 Commandments, there's an interesting passage in Deuteronomy 24. So it was between Moses and all of the elders who said, yes, everything that the Lord says we agree to and will do. And then the law is given, the 10 Commandments are given in Exodus 20, but Deuteronomy is, sorry. Okay. So Deuteronomy 24, there is the ratification of the law, and they're saying, yes, we'll do everything that God tells us to do. Deuteronomy 24. Sorry, it's not Deuteronomy. It is Exodus. I thought so. Okay, sorry, I got confused. Exodus 24:20, the 10 Commandments are given. And then verse 7 says, he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people. And they said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do and be obedient. So Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord has made with you, in accordance with these words. Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire, as clear as the sky. He did not stretch out his hand against the nobles of the sons of Israel. They beheld God and ate and drank. So that was, they went to this covenant-making God and had a covenant meal with him. And that's the only time that anybody other than Moses or Joshua went. But they 70 elders of Israel, in ratifying this covenant with God, went up to the mountain and saw him and ate and drank with him. Wow. Isn't that a cool verse? I love that verse. So also in the law, Passover lamb. Okay. So Jesus as the Passover lamb. We're talking about meals, sorry. Okay, so Moses had that covenant meal. And then later on in the law, that's why I went there. So Moses had that covenant meal to ratify the covenant and seal the covenant with the elders. And then later, as they break it, and he gives the law to the Levites, he says, this is how you'll cover the sins of the people. And he, oh my gosh, my timeline is getting so messed up. I'm so sorry. So he gives a picture to the Levites of cutting the lamb's throat and covering the sins of the people. And their sins are forgiven for that past year. And what the Levite is supposed to do with that, and which they did, was to put the meat in a pot, and then the priest would put a fork in the pot and pull out a piece, and that piece belonged to him. And then the family was to get the rest of that meat, and then they would eat that sacrificed lamb. It wasn't just a lamb sacrificed and thrown in a garbage dump. They actually ate the lamb as a ratification of the covenant and coming back together and saying, yes, we believe this covenant. They were having a celebration of that meal.